After the success of Monkey Island 2, Dave Grossman and Tim Schafer were looking for a new project. After their work as designers, writers and programmers on the first two Monkey Island games, they had been made project leaders, meaning that they would get to take charge of their next game. Both lovers of Maniac Mansion, the pair were given what Schafer had described as kind of an idea for a sequel that Ron Gilbert, Mansion co-conceiver, had in mind. From this rough outline, Grossman and Schafer collaborated to make what would become Day of the Tentacle, sometimes lengthened to Maniac Mansion 2 Day of the Tentacle or Maniac Mansion Day of the Tentacle. Released in 1993 in both floppy disk and CD-ROM formats, Day of the Tentacle is an odd sequel as it's its own game in its own right, and many weren't even aware that it was the sequel to Maniac Mansion. The game contained a fantastic graphical style and great puzzles revolving around a time travel mechanic whereby the player controls three characters, Bernard, Laverne and Hoagie, simultaneously across three different time periods. Combined with their signature humour, Grossman and Schafer went on to make Day of the Tentacle one of the most loved point-and-click adventure games of all time, and one of my all-time favourite games full stop. Many characters from Maniac Mansion made their way into the game, including several wacky members of the Edison family. A remastered version of the game is due to be released imminently, as Tim Schafer's company Double Fine managed to pick up the license. If you haven't experienced the original, I'd thoroughly recommend playing it. Whether you've played the game or not, let's find out if you knew these 10 facts. If you use the Talk To command on Weird Ed's computer, Bernard will say, "Hello little computer, I respect you, even though you only have 64K of memory." This is a reference to the amount of memory contained within a Commodore 64, Maniac Mansion's original platform. When using the computer in Weird Ed's bedroom, the original PC version of Maniac Mansion launches. This game within a game is listed plainly on the game's cover and is probably one of the best extra features ever. Rumour has it this came about because the cutscenes in Day of the Tentacle were limited to 64K, and the team were like, that's all we had for the entire Maniac Mansion, and so thought, why not put it in? None of the Maniac Mansion team worked on Day of the Tentacle, although Tim Schafer worked as a coder on the NES port of the original. As I mentioned before, this was the first game on which Tim Schafer and Dave Grossman served as project leaders. They've both said that it's the most enjoyable game they've ever worked on, and Dave Grossman has proudly called it probably the best thing I've ever done. As a nod to Schafer and Grossman's beloved pirate, you can tell Nurse Edna that your name is Threepwood when Bernard reintroduces himself to her. Tim Schafer has validated a fan theory that Hoagie and Ben from Full Throttle are brothers. Schafer explained that Ben's full name is Reuben. Their mother named them both after sandwiches. Tim Schafer and Dave Grossman both played equal roles as project leaders of the game, and as such their names are reversed in order in their two appearances in the opening credits. Furthermore, the game randomises which one comes first in the initial appearance, so when the game lists the project leaders as Tim Schafer and Dave Grossman at the beginning of the credits, it's listed as Dave Grossman and Tim Schafer at the end, and vice versa, ensuring fairness for both. Around 1994-95, a man named Aaron Giles was hired at LucasArts and tasked with the job of porting a number of their titles to the Macintosh. Although it wasn't requested, Giles made Mac ports of Day of the Tentacle as well as Sam & Max Hit the Road in his spare time, simply because he loved the game so much. He even eventually convinced the bosses to sell the ports officially. As a Mac user himself, he also went one step further and ensured that the Maniac Mansion Easter egg would be carried over to the Mac port, which involved him writing an entire emulator, as Maniac Mansion never got a Mac release. When Laverne microwaves the frozen hamster, she makes a speech to the player about the dangers of 20th century microwaves and how they could really pop a hamster. This is a little dig at the fuss Nintendo made over the ability to blow up Weird Ed's hamster in Maniac Mansion. They were rather upset when they discovered the feature in the NES port, and international versions of the cartridge had the ability removed. As the North American version was not successful enough to warrant a second printing, all NTSC cartridges include the feature. The game's title is likely a reference to the John Wyndham novel Day of the Triffids, in which the title creatures decide to take over the world, in much the same way as the tentacles strive for world domination in the game. The second nod to Monkey Island in this list, Bernard has a dialogue option: "Look behind you, a three-headed monkey," which he can deliver to the triangle-shaped group of tentacles at the end of the game. Made at the same time as Day of the Tentacle, Zombies Ate My Neighbours, which was just called Zombies in Europe, was a top-down run-and-gun game that LucasArts developed for Konami. It features a Day of the Tentacle themed bonus level, complete with tentacles as enemies. So there we have it guys, that was my 10 Day of the Tentacle facts. As I said before, there's an upcoming remastered version of the game. I thoroughly recommend you check it out when it's released. Absolutely fantastic game. And thank you so much for watching. As always, you're very welcome to leave your suggestions in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers!